Hello and welcome to NoCB, a grand strategy podcast. I am your host, TJ Hafer. With me, as usual, is our friend Lambert.
Hello there.
And with us, not as usual, is our special guest for this week, MordredViking.
Hello.
And Father Lorris is lost in the hills of Wales or something, but if he shows up, we'll pipe him in when he arrives. Till then, it's going to be just us three. But before we get into the latest grand strategy news, Mordred, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and let people know who you are if they do not already?
Hello, my name's MordredViking. I stream many strategy games, which is probably why I've been invited here today. You can find me on twitch.tv/MordredViking. I play Europa Universalis, Hearts of Iron, Crusader Kings, Total War, RimWorld, and most recently, lots of mount&blade Bannerlord.
See, I didn't even know you played strategy games. I just thought your avatar was cool. That's why we actually had you on.
TJ just likes the Viking part of your name. Like, doesn't give a shit about the rest of it.
I just see Viking.
I was going to say it's the mutual Viking spirit.
Exactly. Yes. United in Vikingdom. Yeah.
I would feel a little bit outnumbered here, but I do come from Jorvik and I have blue eyes. So chances are I'm a descendant of some Viking or other. So I'm okay. I fit in.
I'm always very torn about my feelings about York. York, the city, I can't stand because I went to Lancaster and the War of the Roses is still alive and well. But then again, it was also Jorvik and it has that Viking heritage. So it's a weird city for me.
Well, I'm not from York, the city. I'm from County Yorkshire. So,
okay, that's better.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
still under the White Rose, but so it goes.
Well, they were referred to as Danes. They may have actually been Norwegian, but my ancestors that came over to England from Scandinavia settled around Lound, which I think is near Nottingham or something like that. It's somewhere up in the Midlands there. So yeah, it was specifically a town founded by Norse settlers. So yeah, that's it's very Nordic. Mm-hmm. It's a very Nordic part of the world for sure. Allergain says it's been hundreds of years, you people. Well, we like history. That's why we're here.
I mean, it's almost
long
like
enough
that's
for it to actually matter.
Yeah, it's almost like that's a unifying thing for this podcast and why you're watching us. I mean, I guess we could just talk about Stellaris all day, but like we like the other games too, and they're mostly history.
Mm-hmm.
Aslan, it's Lound, Lound, not Lund. It might have originally been Lund in, old Danish or whatever for all I know. But anyway, we have a couple dev diaries to talk to you about today. We normally do Crusader Kings 3 first, but I actually had about 3 days of hands-on time with it a couple weeks ago. I have a big preview video up on or a big preview article and 2 short videos about that up on IGN right now. So we'll probably talk about that as well as this week's CK3 Dev Diary last today, since that's kind of our big meaty topic. So we'll start out with some new achievements that we're going to be getting in Europa Universalis for Emperor, which is at this point just around the corner. I think they said June 9th.
Yeah.
Is the release date. What do you guys which of these achievements are your favorites? Which ones do you think you're going to be going for first?
So I'm going to start by saying I've got 5,100 hours in EU4. I have 0 achievements.
You're right. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go for any of them. But there are some here that do seem quite fun. I'll probably do some of these things, but just not get the achievement for them. I quite like Holiest Roman Empire, and of course Kingdom of God with Duplo here is just phenomenal. What a great picture.
That is a great picture. Yeah. Mordred, do you do achievement runs often, or are you just
I was going to say, like,
those?
Lambert's coming in with lots and lots of hours. I have 2,000 hours and 13 achievements, and that's just before I realized I could turn them off.
Got it.
I don't really do achievements. I like being able to save my game. I like being able to go back, especially when it bugs out or the AI does something weird. I like the names of the achievements. I always kind of follow what they're trying to do, but I myself don't tend to go for them. At least not officially. Sometimes we're like, oh, that's a good idea. We'll try it.
Right.
But the one that I really just want to tip my hat to is Everything's Coming Up Mulhouse. I really like that one. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very much the same way, where I'll use achievements as like an inspiration for like maybe what I want my goals to be in my next campaign. But the biggest reason I don't play Iron Man, especially in a game this complicated, is that if a misclick can cause you to lose a battle that causes you to lose a war, I consider that to be like a valid reason to roll back a save. Or if you just click something and the effect is completely unintended compared to what you actually thought it was going to do, which is not as common now that when the games get patched more and when you gain more experience with how their systems work. That doesn't happen as often, but I also will always give myself the option to use that as a chance to roll back. There was a weird one in CK3 actually that I think was a bug that they've now fixed, but where I held land in 2 de jure kingdoms, and then there was a claimant war where the owner of one of those kingdoms was declaring war to claim the other kingdom where most of my land was, and I supported the status quo, and we lost, and it took away all of my provinces in the kingdom I originally started in, and I just had the 2 from the other de jure kingdom where the claim had been pressed. Stuff like that. I will always reload a save because I'm like, clearly that was not supposed to happen. That does not seem like intended behavior. So,
and also sometimes something big comes up, like the Shadow Kingdom.
Yeah.
The first time I refused the Shadow Kingdom, and then got saddled with this debilitating debuff for the entire game. You can't get rid of it. So I went back to a save and decided to go with it this time.
So the reason I don't get achievements in E4 isn't for Iron Man mode. It's not for the saving. I don't really mind that much about the the auto saves and not being able to go back. I just don't like Lucky Nations. I think it's a really terrible mechanic that doesn't
turn that off.
at all represent what made these countries lucky in the first place. It's just I don't like Lucky Nations, so I turn it off. One of the most interesting achievements, I think, though, here is AEIOU. It's not an interesting achievement. It's kind of boring, but I just like that they've finally got, Austria est impare orbi universo in there. It's about time.
You were just looking for an excuse to say that, weren't you?
Well, yeah, no.
I didn't even know that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, it's the Habsburg motto. It's about time that got in there, and I'm sure that Gigao will be very happy about it too.
Is he a Habsburg fan?
No, but Mayo and Texas. It's just replace Austria with me or Mihi in this case.
I had no idea that's where that came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then taxes. Because there's always taxes.
Well, the taxes is because they merged with another mod called Death and Taxes, so then it became Mayo and Taxes.
Right.
Was it you who was very verbal about not liking the merger of those? Or was that someone else?
That's somebody else.
Damn it. Okay, well, I sound like I
Because I've only played Mayo and Taxes a couple of times, and I always feel terrible about doing it, because Gigao was awesome. But, I really like the mod. I just haven't had time to play it more.
My longest series on YouTube is bringing the Empire of the Romans to being the full Roman Empire, which was fun.
I should check that out just so I get an idea of what I'm doing with the mod. Yeah,
it's 163 episodes. I think you could probably find a shorter one.
Well, I could have it on in the background while I'm working or something. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What, you're telling me you don't want views? Okay, nobody go watch Lambert's channel. He doesn't want views. He hates views.
I have more than one series.
He hates YouTube revenue. Just don't ever interact with anything he makes. No.
What revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to do Bohemia as my first game in Emperor. I
Yeah.
think I've already said, but Dithmarschen is also probably high on my list. The fact that they
Peasants
can
War all over.
spread peasant revolts to other countries is going to be amazing.
Actually, that's something.
Yeah.
Considering they added a whole bunch of stuff for the peasants in Dithmarschen, there is no peasant achievement here.
There might already be one. Not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're just too cool for peasants are too cool for achievements. Peasants don't play Iron Man.
Yeah,
When life is that short and brutal, you can't afford to play Iron Man.
I was going to say they wouldn't be able to read the achievement anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
But you get a pretty picture that'll satisfy.
That's
them,
true.
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
You raised an interesting question earlier. Which nation would you play as first? I was listening to the podcast from 2 weeks ago, doing a bit of research about what you guys do and everything. And you guys were saying Bohemia. I know a lot of other people were very interested in Bohemia. I think mine would actually be Lübeck. Like, I really love the Hanseatic League. I love the Hanse's background, so mine would probably be Lübeck.
Yeah. One of the first games I played in Vanilla EU4 that I played all the way to the end date was as the Hanseatic League. They're a lot of fun. For sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
After I crashed and burned as Brandenburg in my first game, I switched to the Hansa and did a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, the Brandenburg start, especially in 1.0 for an inexperienced player, could be tricky to navigate.
I feel like it got a little harder because the optimum strat for Brandenburg way back when was like the first war taking all of Pomerania, Teutonic Order, and Livonian Order, and you could do that without a coalition. That's definitely not possible now.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's one of those starts where it's like, we know that they succeeded, so it feels like it should be easy, but then the game kind of illustrates to you how much of an outside bet it actually is sometimes. Like, the country that ends up succeeding is not at all who you would pick, just looking at it from a specific date. And I think Brandenburg is one of those where it's like, they weren't set up for success. They had a kind of a hard road to trek to get to where they did.
I feel like that's more because of how they did it. Because the way that Brandenburg became Prussia and became, this superpower wasn't through warfare. They didn't get Prussia through warfare. They got it through, fucking around a lot. And it doesn't really work like that in game. You can't really play the dynasty stuff and inherit an entire duchy. It just doesn't work. Maybe if that got expanded in the future, or perhaps
I think theoretically,
E5.
theoretically you can. It's just still nobody understands how royal marriage works anymore. So,
well, can you though? Because Teutonic Order is a theocracy.
Well, they can secularize with the Emperor mechanics, so you just have to wait for them to secularize.
But did the Teutonic Order secularize before they got inherited?
No.
Yeah, it's just something that the game isn't fantastic at, modeling, but
yeah,
still, you could just conquer it. It's fine.
Right.
Conquering's more fun anyway.
Any last thoughts about EU4 before we move on?
I'm very excited to get back into EU4. I haven't played it in quite a while, and looking forward to it.
It's by far and away the most requested game on my channel, and I always feel bad saying, no, I'm waiting for the expansion. Right. Now we have actually a firm release date, and I'm like, it's coming soon. Just a little bit more patience, and we're back into E4, which is fantastic because it's definitely my favorite Paradox game.
Awesome.
I had some comments asking if I'd completely dropped E4. I was like, no, I've got the paradox. You're too excited for the next update to play the current version.
Yeah. And they've been teasing us with this one for over a year. So normally that period of like FOMO would not last this long. Like, oh, I'm missing out on features. EU4 or Emperor now has more dev diaries than the base game did. And also more time between the first dev diary and release than the base game did, I believe. So wow. It's been a long patch cycle, but we were talking about how the Hansa, they were great at exploiting trade, and Imperator is adding some mechanics in the next patch. I believe Lambert will be excited about. You haven't been wanting to rework trade for a long time. Yeah, it's trade and Imperator is to you what Tibet is for Lorris. So.
I think first off, the first part of the dev diary is talking about what Jamor, or I think he's better known, History Wiz, is known. It works on. He's the producer. He gets to decide what goes into a game, how much time they have, and how much how much money they can spend on certain aspects of the game. And unfortunately, that does mean that he's decided that the subject progression that we were talking about, was it last week, maybe the week before, is getting cut because they just don't have time to do it justice. So that's getting cut, but there's some pretty interesting stuff in the dev diary that I think more than makes up for it.
Yeah,
and,
I think this is a good decision, and this goes back to people being annoyed that Byzantines aren't getting Imperial mechanics in 1.0 for CK3 because they want to really do it properly later, and I think that's probably a good if you're going to get one crack at something, you might as well take the time and do it right. I don't see any reason waste dev resources on a half-assed version that's going to get replaced later anyway. I'd rather that they save it for later when they feel like they can do it justice.
Yeah, full ass it later rather than half ass it now.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all know that that's how Paradox develops their games anyway. They start with a pretty solid foundation and they build on it, they build on it, they build on it. So fine. Yeah. They have a proven track record for doing that properly. So
and they have, we have examples of it not being done as great, with stuff like, Mary Nostrum and the Cossacks for EU4 had some features in there that have either been completely overhauled or moved out of the DLC category into the free category.
Estates.
Estates being a big one, where it was we felt like we needed a big new mechanic for this expansion, but maybe it should have just been the Fertile Crescent flavor pack. Maybe we shouldn't have, felt like we needed to cram, more stuff in there that we didn't really need.
It is interesting how their DLC policy has shifted over time, and I think this was mostly pioneered by Stellaris, at least from talking to their developers, where they used to do DLCs which were purely mechanics-based, and now they're shifting to DLCs which are flavor-based, which basically fund the further development of the mechanics. And because of that, the mechanics are free DLC and therefore more easily edited in the future if they end up not working.
Right. Yeah. Although we did see the pre-order... or we'll talk about that when we get to CK3. Let's talk about trade. How is trade changing in Imperator and Lambert? What do you think about the direction they're headed?
Well, trade is something in Imperator that is a little bit stale right now. Every trade good is worth exactly the same cost. You spend your 15 ducats to start a trade route, and then it'll give you a certain amount based entirely on the civilization value of the person you're trading with. Whereas now it's going to be very different, and each trade good actually has a cost associated with it. These costs aren't absolutely colossal, but it's every month getting 0.4 ducats for a little bit of papyrus, for example. They've also changed what the goods actually do. So previously, papyrus was something that gave you, I think it's research speed or research points.
I believe it was research speed. Yeah,
it's something to do with research, but I can't remember the exact wording of it. But now that's gone away, and now papyrus is giving nobles happiness, and I think this is a really good system. I think having trade goods to make your pops happier is something I've wanted for quite some time, and it's actually a part of my suggestion for a trade overhaul. So all of the trade goods would, my nobles are unhappy because they don't have cloth for clothing, or my nobles are unhappy because they don't have dyes. So you import the dyes and they become a bit happier. It feels a lot more flavorful and realistic and grounded rather than, oh, it just gives you more research points, you know? That's a bit
Yeah, it is kind of a system feeding back into an existing system instead of trying to just apply modifiers independently, which I think is taking Imperator towards being more of kind of an integrated ecosystem based on pops. And I agree. I think that's a good way to do it because the net benefit is going to be similar, but you're tying it into an existing system instead of just adding a flat bonus.
There's another thing as well. If I scroll back up a little bit, trade routes. Previously, trade routes were you get one for every port in a province, and you get a capital bonus. You get +1 for each rank of country you are, so whatever power you are. And then there's some laws that you can do. Not really laws, but if you do the center law, instead of getting a bigger bonus from exporting or importing, you get an extra 2 trade routes in your capital. And then you just had your provincial investments. But it's changing now to be from pops. So the more citizens and nobles you have, the more trade routes you have. So it's just tying another thing back into the pop system, which again I'm fully on board with. I think that's good. They're also going to be changing around the provincial investments, because if you're going to be tying things to pops, having a provincial investment to just create a trade route it doesn't feel great, because it's sort of like, oh, I don't care about this new integrated system that they've just implemented. I'm just going to go around that and create my own trade routes with a click of a button. And that's...
Yeah, I've never really liked this current version in the live game right now of provincial investments. It doesn't feel... Like, I usually just end up dumping my excess political power on stability. Like, if I have that much extra political power... Like, I
usually dump it on building an extra trade route in the capital because it's so goddamn powerful. Every trade route gives you a certain amount of pop capacity, which is ridiculously important, and you get the capital bonus from having, more than one of a certain trade good. It's too important to really want to click any of the other buttons for anything other than your capital. Like, it's not a provincial investment. It's a click to get an extra trade route in your capital button. That's kind of weak. So I'm looking forward to them, overhauling that in a way that doesn't circumvent this new interesting system.
Well, they've also done away with 2 of the trade good modifiers they used to have. They did away with the bonus you would get from exporting, which usually seemed like it was just like a 50% version of whatever the surplus in capital bonus was.
Often,
and then, and then they got rid of, what was the 4th one? I know there used to be 4 numbers.
So you had your import bonus, you had your export bonus, you had your surplus in capital bonus. I don't think there was a 4th. Okay,
so they've just basically gotten rid of import and export. It's just local bonus, and then if you have a surplus in the capital.
Oh, there's a surplus in your any province as well. Like, extra surplus gives you an extra bit. That's gone away as well, and it's now just a stacking, how much you have. It's only if you have more than 1 papyrus, you'll get, maybe 8% for having 2 papyrus. Or if this is supposed to be 2 and you actually do have 2 already, then maybe it'll go to 6% or whatever. This just stacks now. You don't get a separate bonus for surplus.
So you'll only be able to horse bomb in your capital. You won't be able to horse bomb.
Oh, I hope they change horses.
Please,
I don't want to see horses do provincial pop capacity.
Pop capacity. Yeah,
I hate
doesn't
that.
make any sense.
So
what are they doing? Are they eating the horses? What's going on here?
So Starchitect made a mod for the multiplayer that I've currently got going on, where he changed the pop capacity into production output.
So that makes sense. Horses they can pull carts.
Help your production.
Yeah, why not?
So I much prefer that.
They're like slaves that don't rebel. It's perfect.
Exactly. I mean, you just put some leaves over their eyes or something.
Yes. Oh yeah, the horses will come for us eventually, but
yeah. There is one more thing I would like to mention about this. With the trade goods now being entirely linked to pop happiness, like papyrus cloth, all that is linked to pop happiness. I want to see the same for buildings, because if I'm just thinking rationally about what would happen if you had a city and there was a bunch of citizens in there, well, they're going to want a marketplace. So they should have a happiness debuff until you build a marketplace. The freemen are going to want a training ground, or the nobles are going to want some kind of law court or palace or something, like a forum. And I would really like to see, cities change to be, buildings being made to keep pops happy rather than buildings being made to just give a boost to output for a certain thing.
Yeah, I agree. My dream is to do something with the holding systems to represent like landing veterans or something. Like if you have a lot of war veterans, your freemen will just become unhappy unless you like set aside land for them or something. But that's probably something that would be an X.X patch headline feature.
Hi, by the way.
Hello,
Lorris.
Lorris is here.
Yeah, sorry, I was wresting a horse off the commons. Anyway, but I would like to see a complete overhaul of the buildings, like adding cultural buildings, especially. Because I have a moment, it feels a little bit odd playing as like a Celtic tribe and building a Roman Forum, Colosseum.
That's true.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. I think.
Oh wait,
would be good.
Is that actually true that your horse escaped and you had to chase it?
Yeah, no, my granddad's horse jumped the fence because one of the mares in the commons was in season, so he got a little bit horny, jumped the fence, and had to go and get it off of the commons. So
we tell
Lorris,
so many jokes about
walking stereotype.
I was gonna say, like, we tell so many jokes about like life in the Welsh countryside that like I couldn't tell honestly if that was a joke or if that was something.
That's actually what happened. I had to get him into
the horses are rebelling. We've just spoken about this.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you meant. I thought you were listening to that and then just continuing that joke.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Oh man! Wow.
Glitter hoof is at it again, I'm afraid. Yeah.
It's happening. It's happening. The horse rebellion has begun.
It's a nightmare. My goodness. Nothing stops horny horses. They're horrible. He was so angry about being taken away from like two female horses. He was proper in there, flirting and everything. It was a nightmare.
Well, I mean, you've just given this horse some blue balls.
I did, yeah. Oh my goodness. We put him back in the stable. He was pissed. He was not happy at all.
Oh man. Yeah.
Poor guy.
All right. Well, do you have any thoughts about this week's dev diary for Imperator? You mentioned cultural buildings.
Yeah.
Something you'd like to say?
I don't know if you've talked about the dropping of the switching the vassalage and changing it to the trade route work. I'm far more excited about trade route work than I am about vassalage.
Yeah.
Not that I'm unexcited about vassalage, but trade route work is far more up my street, I think.
I think this sort of also, we spoke about this a little earlier about, why half-ass something when you can full-ass it later.
Yeah.
And I still think there is a more in-depth, detailed trade overwork or overhaul that they can do. I don't want to say that this is half-assing it, but I do think there's more that will come later down the line. I think trade is something that can have its own season. Like we've got the summer of culture now, we're going to have the autumn of war. I think we could have a winter of trade.
Yeah. But
at the same time, this is looking really good, and trade needed something. It needed to change because it's not good. I'm okay with them putting 3/4 of an arse in this.
Yeah. So.
The other change I'd like to see to trade is it always seems like, especially early game, and especially if you're playing somewhere that's not like the Mediterranean core, you can very easily end up in situations where there's just nothing to trade, which is like, it seems absurd to me. Like there's nobody who wants to trade anything anywhere. That's not how trade works. Like if there was like a placeholder trade good where it's like, all right, we're just going to produce enough of this that you just trade, you set up a trade route with quote unquote merchants for like just general goods. Like it doesn't give you any kind of special benefit, but at least you're making some money off of that trade route slot you built instead of having to go back in and check like every 5 years to see, can I trade for literally anything?
Yeah, sort of just like miscellaneous artisanal stuff. I remember, I don't know if you ever played, oh gosh, what was it called? It was one of Calypso's games. It was like a city builder. I've forgotten the name of it now. But like it had all these specialist goods and also had a miscellaneous trade good, which basically was, passively produced by your artisan pops. And then trade that off.
Starkitect's mentioning we could steal trade routes from someone else based on opinion. That would be cool. Like implementing trade wars, or like, I don't know, some sort of a Hearts of Iron has like a trade preference value that's like, if there's a conflict between two people importing oil from the USA, like who's going to get more of it? Like that would be cool.
I would like to see major routes, to be honest. Like say like actual graphical things, major ports, major trade ports, for example, and then seeing it on the map. Trade goods moving these major trade routes. I know that's probably
it has it in EU4. You can see the ships wandering around the trade routes and turning into caravans when they go on and then they go on land. That would add so much life to the game.
Imagine that. And I also really ships leaving Egypt and going into Rome
it'd be fantastic as well. They've got storms. Imagine if a storm could interrupt trade.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
having trade routes that build up over time, like dynamically, because that would give you an incentive to protect. If there's a third neutral nation in between you and one of your big trade partners, and they're just having civil wars constantly, it's like, okay, you guys are decreasing the efficiency of our trade route, so we're going to step in and do something about this.
I mean, they've got pirates in the game, and all pirates do right now is they wander outside one of your ports that isn't defended by a fort and give you a debuff that goes away. And they're really annoying, so you turn off the pop-up, or you should, because it's just not interesting. Pirates could raid trade. They could steal pops from your cities. They could, there's so much they can do with pirates.
Pirates currently are just who I hire when I forgot to build a navy.
I really wish that they had supply and demand, because they already seem to be going in that direction, because every good has a base trade value now, and that value seems to be stable. Mm-hmm. But if the value went up or down depending on supply and demand, then that could encourage you, for example, to develop your grain supply if you were playing as Egypt, if Rome was buying a lot of it. And that would, right there, encourage some of that dynamism that you're just talking about. You would establish major trade exporting regions, because they're the places that produce your big goods.
I really like that idea. And say as Rome or some other major civilization becomes more developed and we get more patricians and nobles, the price of silk or the price of gold and amber would increase. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And they would purposefully go out and try to expand to regions that produce those if they couldn't acquire them through trade. Or if someone were to, blockade them or boycott them, they're going to have to acquire those products through alternative means.
Yeah.
The only example of that's in the game right now is if you're playing, for example, Syracuse, you don't have any access to iron, so you have to go and expand somewhere specifically for iron. Generally, that's either Sardinia or Crete. Mm-hmm. That's like the only kind of example of I need to expand here to get access to a certain good.
So
there needs to be more of that.
Basically, what we're saying is just turn everything into Victoria. That's the easy answer.
Look, that is the just standard line that we can use for all Paradox games. It always will be. Just make it more like Victoria and win.
Yeah, you had the markets, you had the pops, like you had that part figured out already. Like every game going forward should just start from that. Yeah. Well, that's going to be Imperator for this week. We have quite a bit of Crusader Kings 3 news to talk about. Since I actually got to play it, humble brag, for quite a while. I have a preview up on IGN. I have a 2,000 word written preview, 2 short videos. We were only allowed to capture 10 minutes of video, so I kind of rushed through trying to show as much cool stuff as I could. And then I also did kind of like an AMA on the Crusader Kings subreddit, which I think has like 400 comments now. I answered a lot of questions to the best of my memory or the best of my ability. But the dev diary this week focused on changes they're making to culture. The biggest one being that technology is now going to be tied to culture. Basically, your culture discovers innovations
apparently
over time.
Is it back?
No, my bad. I'll fix it now.
It's back, apparently. Great chat.
It'll be.
Can we get a link to that IGN article in chat, just out of interest?
Yeah, let me link that real quick for you.
Because I suspect that people will be interested in it.
Yeah. I tried. I mean, it's a generalist outlet, so there's like, I have to go over the basics, but I tried to throw in as much little stuff for people who have already read all the dev diaries as I could. Let me see.
I love the introduction of insular Christianity, the Irish.
Yes,
wonderful. It's. I had a really complicated relationship with the Irish Celtic Christianity and Christianity.
Let's see. There's that link in chat.
Thank you
for the preview. I mean, people have been asking me, do you like it? Well, we had the build. We had access to the build for 3 days, and I played it for 37 hours, which is slightly more than 12 hours a day. So, needless to say, I've been enjoying it so far.
You hate playing it, so it's like, I can't stand this game. I'm playing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Sounds like me with Bannerlord.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here you can see King Murrah of Munster, who is a lot of people's first Crusader Kings character. Played as him for a little bit. I talked about in the preview, and they talked about in this week's dev diary how tech's going to be tied to culture now. Cultures are going to discover different innovations at different times. They're partly era gated. Like you actually have to wait until a certain year to progress to the next era. You start out in the tribal era, and then I think it's been a little bit tweaked from the build I played. I think it's now 900 is the start of the early medieval era, 1050 is the start of the high medieval era, and 1200 is the start of the late medieval era. So there's certain techs you can't just like rush ahead. Like you actually have to wait until a certain year to discover them. But it's a lot of stuff like unique units, unique siege weapons. You actually get bombards in the late medieval era now. Like you can actually get early gunpowder artillery, which is pretty cool. And then like succession laws, like primogeniture is unlocked through one of those.
I do like how it's different for each culture too. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but like different cultures unlock different things at different times, and some things have unique cultures, and then it's based on your region too. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's they actually clarified this in the dev diary, because I think I was trying to explain it on like a video I did over the weekend, and I was getting a lot of stuff wrong. So it's not tied specifically to your culture or culture group, but it's tied to see, I'm forgetting again. Let me pull up the dev diary real quick so I make sure that I'm getting this right.
It's the culture of your ruler, isn't it?
Well, it's the so like say you want to build long ships, right? You don't necessarily have to be Norse to build long ships, but either you need to have a certain number of provinces of your culture in the Northern Europe region, or there's one other way to unlock it, and I'm trying to scroll through and remember how this works. So either a certain number of counties within a specific region, or to have a certain percentage of your culture's total counties within that area. So if you're Norse, you get access to longships. You go settle in, the West Slavic forest region. As long as there's still Norse counties in Northern Europe and you are still Norse, you could still get longships, but then also, if you convert enough counties in that area to Norse, your culture would then also unlock the ability to research hussars, which are the West Slavic unique unit. So it's not entirely tied to, this culture gets this unit. It's more based on the region of the world and what cultures are present in that region.
Right.
So it's
theoretically,
kind of a diamond. Environmental determinism, yeah. Uh-huh.
Theoretically, if you turn all of Scandinavia into French culture or something, it will change. Change what the regional benefits are.
Yeah, you could technically culture bomb Denmark to unlock longships for French culture. Yeah, that's valid.
Oh, and speaking of something that's more plausible, British Isles becoming Norse, and also because there's cultural changes, Anglo-Saxon, I assume, has got different benefits from English culture. So that would be interesting.
Yeah, so they get the unique unit for the Norse and for the Anglo-Saxons is the Huscarl, which it's an early medieval unit. So the earliest you can unlock it is 900. They're basically an upgraded, more defensive version of heavy infantry, from what I can gather about them. And yeah, I think you either need to be in Northern Europe or Frisia or England to unlock that specific unit.
Okay.
Just to go back to the longship a second. As your armies can just walk onto water now, what does a longship even do?
So it increases your decreases your embarkment cost, it increases your naval speed, and it lets you sail up rivers.
Okay.
So cheaper ships, faster ships, and access to rivers are the three main things that it does. And the Norse aren't the only people who get that, actually, because they're the sub-Saharan West Africans also get West African canoes that can sail up rivers as well. So you could be an Igbo Viking if you want.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to conquer your way up to the North African coast, I think, because they said there's impassable sea tiles that just prevent you from sailing around West Africa.
You just have to land in Morocco and conquer your way down to the other side of that coast.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
nothing stops Vikings, not even a bit of desert.
No, exactly.
No.
Look, I saw the show Vikings. They were in the desert.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, they traded. Yeah, they traded that far down.
Desert's just ocean without water.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Desert's like an extended beach, really.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've got the map video going right now, let's just talk about the map again, because fuck me, it's beautiful.
It's really good. It's a really good map.
There is one thing I really, really dislike about it, though, and that is the color change to white every time you hover over a county.
Yeah.
I really don't like that. I want to be able to turn it off.
Yeah, the county highlighting is too obnoxious right now. I mean, it's still in development build, so I'd imagine they'll probably tone it down, or they'll make it some sort of a fade-in thing in the final release, or at least I hope they would, because it is kind of obnoxious, especially when you're zoomed in and trying to select counties to build buildings and stuff, and just they all get this thick white fog over them when you highlight them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is something that stood out to me as soon as I saw the gameplay footage coming out.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm hoping to change that. I'm sure that if it isn't changed in the base game, we can't be the only people that don't like it. There's going to be some UI modders that don't like it as well. So it's gonna change with mods, I assume.
Well, I always use map mods and UI mods for EU4 to tweak.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think the default political map in EU4 looks like Play-Doh. So I use like a partially transparent political map mod. So I'm sure
I used to, like but since they added monsoons, that mod has made India unplayable. Because,
really?
Yeah, like twice a year that India just becomes awful. You cannot see a thing. It's terrible.
Oh, man.
Which is
that's
shame. But yeah, I mean, we have a UI modder in chat, Agamade. He's done the UI mod for Imperator, which is like, if you're not going for an achievement, it's kind of a must-have for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't really, because this is the same engine as Imperator, right? This has been new updated, Crusade, I believe. And then what's it called? This is
Germany. Yeah.
And then it was like, does that
There's
change
the lordship bonuses, by the way? I just highlighted them.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you change the UI.
Yeah, it should. I mean, it's going to work like Imperator, as far as I know. Which, would mean that you're not going to get achievements if you have any mods enabled. I mean, I'm not confirming that because I don't know for sure, but I do know that it runs Jomini, and I do know that particular issue is caused by Jomini, at least to some degree. So, yeah. Which makes it more moddable, ironically. It makes the game way more moddable, but it also makes it harder for the game to have mods that don't change the checksum. So we kind of touched on cultural innovations, but is there anything about this week's Dev Diary that stood out to you guys, or anything you would like to ask me about the time that I spent with CK3?
How much sleep did you have?
I mean, during the normal work week, if I get 6 or 7 hours, I consider that to be a win, and that's pretty much what I was doing. So, yeah, I put off other stuff, but I got a decent amount of sleep.
I put off eating.
Agamade in chat, yes, there is a character finder, and it's actually, the character finder is a lot better than the one in CK2 because you can sort by stuff like if you're trying to find marriage prospects, you can sort by alliance strength, and it will show only the marriageable candidates that would give you an alliance, and they're sorted by the like military strength of the nation you would become allied with if you married them. So yeah, character finder is very good in CK3.
Also, if you think the stream is lagging, that's not actually the stream. Apparently, scrolling down is not as clean as it used to be since they added all this dust floaty stuff on the forum. It's very weird.
I was talking. Yeah, I'll go for it.
No, I was saying I quite like the split up of the cultures of the screenshots. It's the British Isles culture. There's Cumbrian now, and Cornish.
Yeah, Cornish and Cumbrian are in the culture group with Welsh. They renamed Highlander to Gaelic, I think.
Yeah.
And they made it so that the Scots actually split off from Anglo-Saxon culture, which is more historically accurate. They don't split off from Pictish.
Yeah.
So, so the Lowlands.
I'm also really happy to see the Norse Enclave in Ireland.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Dublin
a high level pick for me.
Is a Norse city. It was set up by the Vikings.
Yeah,
Dublin was
founded by the Vikings.
The site of Dublin didn't really have much there. Like it's probably like a fishing village or something. And
slave market, wasn't it? Is that the history of it? It was used to be pretty much.
I think it might have been, yes.
Yeah.
It's just good business.
And then I think are any of the Isles Norse too, or we're not sure
that. I'm trying to think. Is that all that the screenshot shows, or does?
Yeah,
there's a tiny bit of Orkney, which is also blue. That looks Norse, and Orkney was Norse.
Yeah, Orkney's Norse.
The Western Isles are Gaelic, but I think they are under Sigurd in 867, so they are under a Norse ruler.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's like slightly.
Yeah, you can see it's. Yeah.
But yeah, Orkney.
What about the Isle of Man? Is that Gaelic or is it Irish? because it kind.
If it's a separate color, what if it's Manx? What if it's like its own thing? That'd be so cool.
I'd say if it was Manx, you'd see just the tiniest little lettering on it.
Oh yeah.
I think it's Gaelic. I think it starts with Gaelic culture, but I also think it might start under a Norse ruler. I don't remember exactly.
Well, it's not got hatched lines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh well, no Manx. Well, I'm happy with Cumbrian just as a thing. So good, and Cornish being separate, lovely.
Yeah, I also want to say I really much prefer the font that they're using in CK3 over the one they use for CK2.
Yeah,
it's so much more legible.
I have to say, like as a rampant dyslexic, it's actually very very nice. It's lovely.
PO8 CRG, I believe the Western Isles are Norse by 1066. This is the 867 map. You can tell because York is occupied by Vikings. So
also, yeah. I was going to say also it's Anglo-Saxon, not English, but no, that's 1066 is when he comes in and changes it. So it's not that yet. Yeah. You can see that it's split up into different countries, though.
Halbort says, how did you find the difficulty? Was it too easy? So what I said on the Reddit thread, it feels easier than CK2, but that's mainly because you have better access to information and you have more tools to accomplish your goals. And there are a lot more mechanics that behave intuitively instead of counterintuitively. So it's not like they just tweaked the numbers to make it easier. It's just that you have more options and the information you're acting on is more accurate and there's less stuff that just seems like it just behaves poorly for no reason than you had in CK2. So I think in some ways it'll be harder, like the fact that everybody is basically locked to Confederate partition, which is like a shittier version of Gavelkind at the beginning of the game. Like I almost always had after a ruler died, I had 5 to 10 years where I had to go beat up my brothers to, get my realm back together. But yeah, I think overall it's slightly easier in the sense that it's not as much of a pain in the ass. Like claims now, there will never be a situation where you're sitting around for 20 years waiting for a claim with no indication of how it's progressed. Like you actually have a progress bar. When that progress bar fills up, something will happen. It might not be that you automatically get the claim, but something will happen to remind you, oh yes, you are making progress towards fabricating a claim on this province. Maybe we can speed it along for a little bit of money or for a little bit of moral wiggle room.
I much prefer that rather than deciding with dice rolls.
Yeah, for sure.
How about Border Gore too? Oh, anyways.
Hey, Rose.
So Border Gore, from what I could tell, the game rules for Exclave Independence are exactly the same ones from CK2, just ported over.
That's all right.
Yeah, and the one that's on by default is the less strict version. So it's like you either have to be connected by land or by like a certain number of sea zones or be within the same de jure kingdom. And if it's not one of those three things, it'll go independent on ruler death, I think is how it works. So yeah, usually if there was just some random county that some lord inherited that was outside their de jure kingdom, it would usually, from what I saw, go independent within one generation and then get gobbled up by a local duke within like 5 to 10 years after that. So there is a lot of border gore, but it doesn't tend to be persistent border gore. It tends to kind of erase itself.
That's good.
Cull itself over time.
As long as, like West Francia doesn't own like Inner Mongolia randomly and it's just a nightmare to conquer them.
No.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk
you still
about stuff that's not happened in Dev Diaries too? What's your...
I'm allowed to talk about almost anything I saw in the preview, whether it's been in a Dev Diary or not. So.
Sweet. And was Crusade Mechanics in the
yes. Yeah. So Crusades work... Yeah, Crusades work very similarly to how they do in Holy Fury. So the Pope will call a crusade. There will be a crusade target. You'll nominate a beneficiary. It can't be you. I'm not sure if you can pick your heir or not. I think I said previously that you could pick your heir, but then I thought back on it. I was like, I'm not actually sure about that. But you pick a beneficiary from your dynasty. Based on war contribution, everybody who participated gets handed titles in the target area if you win, and whoever contributed the most gets the top level title. So yeah, it's very similar to Holy Fury, where you end up with like a multicultural Crusader state.
Brilliant. I like that.
Yeah. And there's also a mechanic where you can like donate to the war chest that gets divided up between everybody at the end or something like that. So
nice.
What's your favorite lifestyle to play with?
Yeah, it's TrueMaster13 in chat asking your favorite lifestyle tree you played with. The one that I felt like ended up being the most powerful was actually Stewardship, especially in the early game. Just because that like development is a pretty big deal and it's pretty hard to get more of it. I mean, Intrigue, obviously, there's a lot of shit you can do with hooks. Like if you want to play as a Super Duke, you get hooks on your liege and then force him to lower your tax obligations and force him to lower your levy obligations. And then later on in the High Medieval era, you could like get declared a Palatinate, which is basically I'm basically independent at this point, except that the king has to protect me. So yeah, hooks are really good. So Intrigue, obviously, helping you get more hooks is going to open up a lot of pathways. Learning's pretty cool, but I felt like even if I maxed out the learning tree, like my character would end up getting cancer or something anyway. Like the oldest I was able to survive to was like 82 years old, even with all of the learning perks that boost your health. Because yeah, if you get cancer or if you get an infected wound or something, it's like there's only so much that perks can do to help you. You're not going to have a lot of characters living to be like 105 or whatever.
It's not a bad innings for the medieval period, is it? Like 80 odd, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, it feels more realistic. There's actually a lot more stillbirths, a lot more children don't make it to adulthood, and women dying in childbirth is somewhat more common. Not like a lot more common. But yeah, stillbirths and children not making to adulthood, a lot more common, it felt like. Women dying in childbirth is somewhat more common than it was in CK2. That's pretty
cool. Not still points and women dying. The concept of it happening in the medieval period, like that's cool.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was almost like 50-50, right? Like whether you're,
it must have been terrifying becoming pregnant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hellboard is asking, would you say there are a bunch of bad lifestyles like rulership in CK2? I think they all have their purpose. Some of those purposes are just inherently less interesting to me. Like, I don't know, the Gallant tree, which the video is actually showing right now. I didn't feel like that one was as worth it as like Strategist and Overseer were. Because Overseer makes your realm better. Strategist helps you win wars. Gallant, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, if you want dueling to be like the thing that you focus on, that's cool, but it doesn't give you a lot of stuff that's useful in other situations. So, let's see. Agabade is asking about romancing and eloping. Oh yeah, it's CK3 is a giant, like, trashy reality show. Like everybody's just constantly fucking each other. Everybody's sleeping around behind everyone's back. Like there's bastards everywhere. There's a lot of that going on, like constantly. Yeah. The woman yelling at cat meme could be on the box for this game. Just give her like a male coif or something. Yeah.
Something I noticed in some of the gameplay footage was a dynamic soundtrack. So when they declared war, but soundtrack changed to it.
The music, the music for when a crusade starts is one of my favorite pieces of music in any Paradox game ever. I don't think I got it on video, but like it really makes like the music that plays when a crusade start really just makes you be like, let's go. Like
it's like, is it like sort of like, choirs going off and stuff?
It's like triumphant, like soaring sort of righteous battle anthem. Yeah, it's the music is really good, and it does change dynamically.
Fantastic.
I I found this out when I was trying to extract music files from the game to use for the video, because they're all just in these like weird archives. Because it's kind of like it's dynamically generated. It's not like it's just playing
not just an MP3 in a folder on
an
shuffle.
MP3 or something. Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
That's
the music is really, really good.
It's
The new
not
arrangement
something
of the
that I'd
title
ever
theme.
like think I'd want, like a dynamic soundtrack for a Paradox game, but seeing it in a video, my goodness, that is going to add so much to the immersion of the game, really, isn't it?
I mean,
Right.
EU4 does have somewhat of a dynamic soundtrack. Like, it will play more heavy warfare-y music when you're at war. Fairly sure that's a thing.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah, I think it'll select tracks that fit the theme of what you're doing, and it'll kind of fade them in and out. Yeah.
Like guns, drums, and steel when you go to war.
Yes.
I do love guns, drums, and steel. It's great.
Yeah. How does Dread feel? True Master was asking if you had a chance to use it. Basically, you have like a base Dread. This is something I didn't dig deep into because your Dread, it works very similar to how stability currently works in Imperator, where it will decay up or down towards a base value. And I couldn't really figure out what I could do actively to make my base Dread value go up. Like, you can make it go up temporarily by, like, executing rebels and stuff. But I'm not entirely sure. And then you have, like, certain modifiers that give you ticking Dread per month. Like the Torturer tree and Intrigue, I think. And then based on what level of Dread you're at a given moment, every character in your court will either be unfazed by it, which means default behavior. They'll be cowed, which means they're less likely to act against you, or they're terrified, which means they're blocked from taking certain actions against you. And that's partly based on, like, are they brave? Are they craven? Stuff like that. So it's definitely useful if you have a lot of rebellious vassals and they're all terrified of you, because they won't fire any factions, which is nice. So, yeah.
Does it have an effect on, like, the opinions of your heirs? So say if you're a right bastard, will people hate your son? Like,
I didn't actually see if Dread can carry over from one ruler to the next. Like, if there's, like, a temporary bonus or something. That's an interesting question. I just didn't happen to check.
Is there more actual relationships that carry over between rulers? Like the fact that one of your older generals, for example, might have been around while the kid was still growing up and now he's the king. I always felt in Crusader Kings 2 that relationship was just kind of forgotten. Is that still the case here, or have they actually got more stuff that carries over?
Yeah, I didn't pay super close attention to that stuff. That's a really good question. I guess we'll have to wait until later to find that out.
To delve back into your recycling folder, get back those programs that police use to recover really old files.
Let me post that video, by the way, because that was part of the restrictions of the embargo is that we had to delete the game files after we finished, which I think I might have been partially responsible for, because I kept a beta build of Hearts of Iron on my computer for like a year. I don't think
that's
I was
the one that you
supposed to
posted
have.
in Discord, CK3 Mad World. I can play that.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna copy the link and post it in chat for anyone who wants to. Yeah, this was the real feels that I had when I.
Any tears shed at all as it was going?
Yeah. Okay. Lambert's playing it on the stream now.
Must have been like drowning a puppy. It must have been awful.
I'll edit this into the audio version too. So, well, actually, I probably can't because we'd get copyright strike for it. But yeah,
like, even I feel bad for you, and I should just feel jealous.
I know it was a terrible moment in my life. I haven't fully recovered from it yet. Well, I've been talking a lot. God damn it! Why in chat is asking. Are you looking forward to CK3 Mordred? Chris says, what are you most looking forward to? Since you are our guest, I feel like we should hear from you some more.
Well, I was quite happy just listening to your reports because this is all stuff I haven't heard before. Probably the Bloodlines. I always felt like Crusader Kings 2 lacked a little bit of like your dynasty developing over time. Yeah, your realm gets bigger, but that was about it. Now with the Bloodlines, I feel like different dynasties will start to evolve and like earn different reputations and probably forming different rivalries and things like that with other dynasties around the map. That's probably what I'm looking forward to the most, like that continuity, which is outside of just, this is my land, this is your land, let's fight some wars.
No, same. I'm really looking forward to that too. It'll also add like so much more incentive to like really try and get your relatives to be married to different kingdoms and put your relative on thrones, other than like alliances and stuff, right? Because it's all about the bloodline.
Right. That's what I'm most looking forward to, is just how many countries, independent countries, can I put the Lambert dynasty on?
And that's
actually, speaking of character creator or the character designer, is that in?
It wasn't in the build that I played, but I've seen screenshots. I don't know where they got them from. Somebody on the subreddit posted a screenshot of the barbershop interface where you could change like hair and clothes and stuff on an existing character. So that seems like that's a thing, unless they put a lot of time into a hoax. Yeah, but as far as like ruler designer, like where you can create your own character from the start date, that was not in the build I played. They did not say, yes, we're absolutely doing it. They did not say we are definitely not doing it. They just didn't say anything about it. So I don't know.
Well, there's nudity in the game too, so are they going to go full cyberpunk on this? Like, how customizable are we going to be able to go with this?
Well, you do have the full 3D avatars now, so probably more than you'd expect.
Yeah, that would be cool if you could get like steampunk augmentations. It's like the last tier of technology. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking of more like the Big Dick Dynasty, to be honest. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, well, yeah.
How customizable can you get that?
Yeah, which there actually were like very low poly count dicks in the build that we played. Although Meneth confirmed for me that those are not going to be in the final version of the game. They're going to be covered up by a leaf or something.
Oh, yeah, I see.
But you can see boobs for characters that either are naked because of an event or are because of their religion. There's a specific religious tenet that mandates everybody has to be naked. That, like,
so it's not full frontal. It's just titties.
Yeah, I mean it was in the build we played, but they said that the lower bits are going to be covered up by a leaf. And yeah, there we go. Lambert's got a screenshot up. Yeah, fully modeled upper bodies. Yeah, so. That you can turn that off in the options menu if you're worried about
probably good for streamers and stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I was getting a community track or something. Yeah,
family friendly.
Yeah,
I mean for Twitch it'd be fine, but for YouTube I'm definitely worried about some demonetization for it.
Yeah.
I think that was.
I mean, I'm worried about demonetization
Can you turn this
all
off?
the time anyway, but. Yeah, the other interesting tenet that we were talking about insular Christianity earlier is that even though it's technically a different faith from Catholicism, they actually have a tenet that makes it so that they are still in communion with the Catholics and they are not viewed as heretics, which is something you can actually select when you reform your religion if you want to take up a whole slot for it. But yeah, there's one other religion that starts with that. And I think they're called the Christiani. They're like the Bosnian Christians. They're like their own little isolated sect now. So, yeah. Cool. Different religions feel different. Yes. As far as the flavor events that you get, there are a lot of them. I didn't feel like there were a lot that were like, oh, this event is very pagan specific or this event is very Muslim specific. It was more like, this is something that could happen anywhere, but then, it's got some dynamic text to reflect where I live. But in terms of their actual mechanics, yes, they are very different. So,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, how does the Norse split too? That was an interesting thing. So does it start as Norse entirely? I guess it does, right? And then
The culture or the religion?
The culture.
Yeah, the most of the culture events, if you played from the earlier start dates in CK2, they're still the same as they were before. Like Iberia starts off as Visigothic, and then they split up into like Galician and Leonese and Catalan, I think Basque is the other one. Catalan, yeah.
Aragonese as well is in there.
Aragonese, that's it. Because I think Catalan actually is already there. But and then Norse splits up into Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian. Scots basically split off from Anglo-Saxon. All of the Anglo-Saxon provinces within the de jure Kingdom of Scotland end up becoming Scottish. Melting pots, I didn't play far enough to see that, but they did say in this week's dev diary that they will exist, including some new ones.
Yeah, so. I'm just thinking about the splits. Maybe there's a lot. It could be more incentive to not become Norse. Maybe there's bigger bonuses to Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, or Icelandic.
Yeah.
Let's touching a little bit on the dev diary, but I have a feeling that the innovations of your culture are going to matter more for that as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. Yeah, like if Denmark was very advanced in terms of development, they might get, I don't know, armored horsemen faster than the Norwegians did. Not that armored horsemen would be great for fighting in Norway. But yeah, they're definitely.
Imagine how cool it would be, like a longship rolling up to your coast and fucking cavalry come off it.
Yeah, but yeah, like you could have stuff where like, okay, we're all Norse culture, but then we split off three ways, and the Swedes are going to focus more on trade, the Danes are going to focus more on law and politics, and the Norwegians are going to focus more on war and exploration. Like that's definitely something that could happen.
I just realized, Lorris, what you just described there, that's Normandy. Longboats is on the Bear Tapestry, and then they roll up on the shore, and boom, Norman Knights.
That's exactly what the Normans were.
So, really? I don't know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you look at the Bear Tapestry, like all of the ships are just Norse longboats.
When you said it was Normandy, I thought you meant like the Normandy D-Day landings. It's like, I'm pretty sure that's not how it went.
In this version, it did.
The little
landing crafts come down, like the front of a landing craft come out, and cavalry charge out to the Germans.
The little-known cavalry landings at Gold Beach, So,
also, I guess, because you have a cultural head, I guess if you're working in Norway and you're not the cultural head, and you go, ooh, I've got an event to become Norwegian culture, there's a lot more incentive to quickly nab Norwegian, and then you're the cultural head, right?
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things I kind of picked up on the dev diary. For example, the screenshot there is of Cornish and then Anglo-Saxon. If you're an Anglo-Saxon, it's going to be a lot more difficult to control what the Anglo-Saxons are doing culturally. But if you're Cornish, you have loads of control, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And your base innovation progress is based on the average development of all counties that have your culture too. So, like Greeks are going to get innovations pretty quickly, whereas the Sami might not get them as quickly. But it also is like if you convert everything you conquer to your culture, you're actually going to progress slower technologically. So it might be better if you're in Germany and you conquer a bunch of land in like Polabia. Put like a Palabian duke in charge of those guys so they don't rebel, and then just let them keep their cultural traditions so your tech progress doesn't slow down. So
I don't know if it was clear in the dev diary, or maybe I just misread it. I didn't quite get how you became a cultural leader. Is it just if you're the biggest kingdom, or say if you
own the most if you own the most counties of that culture, you become the culture leader.
Got you. I see.
Right.
So you don't even have to be independent.
Mm-mm.
Right, I was actually wrong about the independent part. You don't have to be independent.
Right. It's just over. Oh, I see. So like theoretically, you could have I don't know, the Caliph own like quite a lot of lands, but not stuff directly. But you could be a very learned person who owns.
No, I think it does include vassals. Actually, it'll always go to the higher title.
It includes your it includes your sub realm. So all of your vassals' counties would count towards you. But I could see a situation in which a smaller ruler who had a more concentrated cultural core could be culture head over a much larger ruler who was ruling mostly over foreigners. So yeah, that's definitely possible. Halbert's asking about Muslim and tribal gameplay. Muslims, other than the unique tenets they get, which, like, I think the Ashari have legalism, which it gives you an option where you can basically theologically debate your rivals, which is kind of cool. And then like the Ibadi, or whatever the branch that's in northwestern Africa, they have fatwa, which is kind of like a soft excommunication mechanic, sort of, that you can use. But other than that, being clan government as opposed to feudal, it does a few things. Clans basically work the way feudal realms did in CK2 to some degree, because feudal vassals are required to give you a certain amount of taxes and men based on their feudal contract. And it's like, whatever it says on the paper, that's what you owe me. With clans, it's based on how much they like you, which is how it worked for everybody in CK2 pretty much. There's also the clan government makes it so that all of your vassals will want to marry into your family, and they will get annoyed with you if they are not. So like you have this pressure to like marry off your spare daughters to your strong vassals, which is kind of interesting because then, you know, their kid might end up having a claim on your stuff.
Yeah, and it limits your external politics too.
Right. Yeah. There's a couple other things. I didn't write them all down, but it is pretty different.
Oh, and then
tribes,
the cultural development, I guess. Is that right? To read that in the dev diary?
Yes.
For tribes,
tribals can only get tribal era.
Yeah, clans don't have that restriction. So like the Muslim realms, for the most part, won't. There are some tribal Muslims, but most of them start with clan. But yeah, tribes can't progress past the tribal era technologically until I think they have to have either converted to a reformed religion or reformed their religion. And let's see, it says in here. Obtain a non-tribal culture head is actually how it works. And yeah, to reform out of tribal government, you need to be part of an organized religion, I believe. So, yeah, tribes were broken in the build I played, so I didn't play much with them. I mean, obviously they have the raid mechanics. There's a little bit more you can do in terms of raiding, since you can basically raid anywhere now. There's the soft fort zone of control system, where if you march past a hostile fort, you will just take a big, flat, like, excruciating attrition hit. So you can't just like go from Poland and like march straight into the heart of Germany and sack Aachen and go home. Like, you would take way too much attrition trying to do that.
I really like that.
That is a lot better.
That's the way that forts should work in their other games.
Yeah, it's like basically it's like the EU4 system, but anytime you would have been blocked from movement in the EU4 system, you can still choose to do it. You're just going to lose men. So, and it's like 10%. It's like a 10% hit. Like, it's not small. So
no, that's I like that a lot. That's really good.
But yeah, the reason I wasn't able to play much as tribes is because there was a bug, which they did confirm to me is now fixed, that was causing men-at-arms to have their upkeep paid in gold instead of prestige, because tribes use prestige for most of the things that feudal and clan rulers would normally use gold for. So you use prestige to hire men-at-arms, you pay their maintenance in prestige, yeah. So...
Well, clearly now that bug is fixed, they should send you a fixed version of the game.
Yeah, I need 3
so
more
that you can
days
give
to
the
play,
most comprehensive review that you possibly can.
Yeah.
Well, you know, give it to one of us. I mean, that would work too.
I think we should all get a copy. No. I mean, we're all journalists now, right? This is technically just journalists by association, right? That's how
this is the NoCB review.
Yeah.
And
we're
all
all
of us
classified
require
as
copies.
press when we go to events.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
Gamma
see.
asks, did you have any dumb deaths?
Good question.
Let's see. I mean, what do you consider to be dumb? Like the reason I was in
Impaled on a
this
battering ram?
like, yeah, is it like dumb like the actual method of death was dumb, like Darwin Award's dumb, or like the reason I was in this situation in the first place was dumb? I mean, you still have the class. I mean, court physicians are back. There's no like dynamic plague map mode with like dynamic, spreading plagues and stuff. It's just back to being an event that happens at your court. Like, oh no, smallpox. But yeah, the court physician can still, like chop your arm off to try to cure your sniffles, and then you die from blood loss. Like that still happens. Yeah, the most frustrating death was when I had a character who was a Crusader, and he was married. I talked about this in the IGN preview, so you guys might have already heard this story, but he was married to the king's daughter. I was double duke. I was the Duke of Burgundy and Orleans, and my wife was the daughter of the King of West Francia, and I had a stress event where I reached a certain stress threshold, where one of the things that can happen is you can lash out against another character, and I basically told the king off for being an asshole, so he didn't like me. But I also had the biggest army of any duke in France, so it was like, what can he do about it? Well, I went off on the crusade, and of like the 6,000 men that I sent to the Holy Land, 14 of them survived. And then he was like, and imprison and execute. And so I was like, he was just waiting until I couldn't defend myself, basically. So, yeah. And it was all because I tried to be a good Christian and go, shed blood in the Holy Land.
Yeah, exactly. Should never have done it.
Yeah.
Should
So,
stay
don't go on
sit
crusade.
over to
Music
the
was enticing you.
good Christian thing and overthrow your ruler.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's that's a lot of CK3. Did you guys have any final thoughts before we?
So I'm
we wrap this
just
up?
spitballing here. You liked the game?
Yes, it's
Okay. It wasn't super clear, so I just thought we need to clarify. You do actually like the game.
It's all the best parts of. Yeah, it's all the best parts of Crusader Kings 2 made better. There's still a lot of room for it to grow, I feel like. It's not going to have all of the features that CK2 had with every expansion. But the things that fundamentally make Crusader Kings, they have improved on in such tremendous ways that, yeah, I can't wait.
Sweet.
That sounds awesome. I can't wait
get
to
my
play
hands
it.
back on it. Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't ask you any questions about Tibet. See, that's dereliction of
Still
duty.
Tibetan Buddhism is its own religion now, so...
Yeah. Oh, it's actually the Silk Road in it, so is that not in that bunch?
No, there's no trade posts or anything like that currently.
No merchant
I imagine
republics
that's
yet
going to
either.
come when they add in
China?
merchant company peoples.
Republics.
That's the one.
I reckon that's coming pretty early on. That in, like, nomadic states.
I think
and
merchant
China.
republics were like the first expansion for CK2, weren't they?
No, Sword of Islam was first, I think.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
It's sort of Islam, Legacy of Rome, and then the Republic, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then, was it Old Gods after that? I got in just after Old Gods got released.
Old Gods was the next major one. There might have been a smaller one in between there. Yeah, let's...
I think we're probably going to get a Byzantine fluff up at some point in CK3, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Almost certainly. It's such a popular nation that is
Oh,
always
yeah,
going to be renamed
Sunset
for me.
Invasion was in the middle there. That's what we forgot about.
that's right. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness,
That's
that takes me
'cause
back.
We
Remember
forget it
before about
because we
raids?
turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually
it's,
quite like Sunset Invasion. My problem with it is they always attack in the same area. And I
Yeah.
usually play in that area.
Yeah, we always attack where you are. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that's coded in, but it seems that way anyway.
Oh,
just in
I'm
like
playing
Sri
as
Lanka, and the Aztecs
a
are like,
horde
yeah, we
this
went the
time.
other way.
I'm going to enable that DLC.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get out of here, Mordred, since you're our guest, why don't you start? Where can people find your stuff, and what have you been up to lately?
You can find me most of the time on twitch.tv/MordredViking, also youtube.com/MordredViking. Basically, if it's MordredViking, it's me. Been playing a lot of strategy. Total War, not Three Kingdoms. Total War Warhammer just got a new DLC, so I've been playing that.
Yes.
Incredible amounts of mount&blade, Bannerlord, which I'm absolutely loving. And there will be U4 coming back soon, because not too much longer until it's released.
We do need to dedicate like a proper podcast to Total War, because
I played it a lot in the last week too, and we just didn't have time for it.
So much fun. Who would have thought that it'd be so fun to have a crossover between Total War and Cooking Mama? Like, who would have thought? But it is, isn't it? It's just amazing.
Yeah. Look, if I can put some stinking knife ears bits in a big pot and cook them up, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, that's it.
Chris, no, there was no Hearts of Iron news this week. I think they're on a hiatus.
Yeah, no voice, no Stellaris.
Yeah.
We did get a new civilization for humankind.
We did. They announced Ghana. We can take a look at that real quick.
Thing is, I don't know anything about Ghana. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, they were one of the bigger sub-Saharan Africas during that era. Sub-Saharan African empires during that era. They get camel warriors. They get a market. Two things that, Northwestern Africa are pretty well known for. I think probably be pretty trade focused. Interesting thing is they haven't really been telling us much about how these emblematic units are actually different from the base units. So that might be something we have to wait for. But we'll keep an eye on that. Lambert, what have you been up to lately, and where can people find your stuff?
So I finished off my Vandal campaign, got the achievements there in Imperator. I just started a Total War Warhammer 2 head-to-head campaign with my friend Vespasian, and nice. I'm playing as Grom the Paunch, him as Eltharion, and that's only had one session so far, but we're streaming that tomorrow.
Do they start close together? I didn't actually look at where Eltharion starts. Okay.
Grom starts a bit south of the Badlands, quite next to Krokgar, and Eltharion's on Ulthuan. But we're playing the Vortex campaign in the Mortal Empires. Grom actually starts in Bretonnia.
Yeah, he starts. That's what's it called? Orcal Massive, right in the middle.
It's a hard start.
Really
right next to the Wood Elves as well. They can really do some damage.
Yeah. I mean, there's the Bowmen of Orion next to Grom in the Vortex campaign, and they are. I mean, you got to take that bloody tree out real quick, otherwise they will really annoy you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm absolutely adoring the new war mechanics. Never liked playing orcs before. Now orcs are like, a pretty high tier nation for like enjoyability.
Yep.
They're no vampire counts, because I mean the vampire counts are just the best always. But they're definitely up there. They're much better than they used to be.
It almost feels like it's like a proper like Crusade mechanic, right? Like you select a target and just everybody goes.
Yeah, I've never made that connection before, but WoW is now Crusade. No, the Crusades were WoWs.
Yeah, there you go. The Crusades were just a Catholic WoW. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Crusades, like it does spice up, especially in Mortal Empires, the Bretonian campaign now. It's so flavorful because you've got the Wood Elves, you've got Skarsnik, you've got the vampire counts in like all of the border of Bretonia, and now you've got Grom there too. So
I really want to try out what's the chick that's basically Joan of Arc. And she starts out in
Repens de Lyonnais.
Thing of Lyonnais.
Repens
of Lyonnais.
Yeah.
And
really
Henry Le Massive. They're like Facebook.
I just realised the translation for Deus Vult is actually
yes. Yeah. We'll see eventually
and
the orcs,
Gork wills it.
Yeah, Gork and Mork, it turns out that they're actually co-existential facets of the same entity.
There were saints.
Where there was a big ecumenical council about it. A bunch of orcs, were declared heretics. Yeah,
yeah, it's the Great Schism. That's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll talk some more about Warhammer, I'm sure. Lorris,
that's there on my YouTube channel anyway. If you want to go and check out some Total War Warhammer, that's a lot of fun. Really enjoying it, and it's gonna be more of that. There's also a new Imperator Rome multiplayer where I'm playing as Parnia. It didn't go so well last session. The Sunday was just gone. Was the first session. My stream died. So I just started recording it, and then midway through the session, my power died and corrupted the video. So that went swimmingly, but Sunday we're going to be streaming and recording some more of that. So this should be fun. Some good stuff coming up.
Awesome. Lorris, other than chasing horses across the Welsh countryside, what have you been up to?
I've been catching up on commissions. I've actually... some work I did a while ago for Anno has just been published. So I did a series of 5 comics about Arctic exploration. So I'm really into like all the Arctic adventures people went on and the disastrous, crazy stuff they did. The first one should be up on the Anno Union blog somewhere. It's about the Franklin expedition, which is probably the most famous Arctic disaster. And in the next coming weeks, keep an eye on that blog, because there'll be 4 more being published about really cool historical events that happened in the Arctic. Basically, if you like Tolkien...
I'm always out to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea. It's So it's a really good song, by the way. It's Canadian folk. Who was the guy that originally wrote it? I'm going to get crucified for not knowing this.
You can get wad.
I know exactly what he looks like, and I know how he died, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Stan Rogers?
Stan Rogers, yeah. But there's a heavy metal band from British Columbia called Unleash the Archers that did a metal version of his song Northwest Passage that Valorgain, who is in chat right now, actually introduced me to, and it's one of my most played songs on Spotify, so you guys should definitely check it out.
That's pretty cool. I recently learned that they actually teach this stuff in Canadian history lessons, which I'm so jealous of. I get to learn about John Ray, who's a really interesting Arctic explorer, and Franklin expedition, obviously. You get to learn about that.
Yeah.
And what do we get to learn about?
Roald Amundsen.
And more did we get to learn about fucking Anderson shelters? You know?
Yeah.
Woo.
Oh no, I moved to Ireland when I was 13, but the time before that, when I was in England, we did half a semester on the ancient Greeks, and half a semester on the Romans, a little bit of World War II, and then I buggered off to Ireland and learned all about Irish history and also American history.
Oh
yeah, no, our history is basically.
What history? Sorry,
our history education. Our history education in the U.S. is basically there's the Greeks, and then the Romans, and then the American Revolution, and then World War II, and then it's over. That's basically Civil War. Civil War is in the middle there. Yeah.
Well, it's like the Tudors. I quite like the Tudors, but they teach it in a really boring way in history.
Oh yeah.
And
nothing happened between 1066 and 1766. Nothing at all. We definitely didn't kidnap a bunch of people and enslave them to, work for us. Yeah. So, as far as what I've been up to, you can check out my Twitter to find most of what I've been doing. AsaTJ, that's ASATJ. Big preview of Crusader Kings 3 is up on IGN. I've got 2 videos on the IGN YouTube channel. One of them is 6 minutes of gameplay. One of them is showing off the 867 map, including the religion and culture map modes. Those of you who watch this live have already seen most of it, but you haven't heard my commentary. And I am officially back streaming on twitch.tv/LoreSwornOrder. I did a little bit of Imperator on Sunday, not realizing that I must have... cursed Lambert or something to all of these technical issues. Probably this week, DM, who you might remember from some of the older Loresworn streams, or next week, is going to be coming back on, and we'll be posting a full official schedule because times are weird right now. Some of the ways that I used to make side money outside of freelancing do not exist anymore, and so now I'm doing this. So we will of course appreciate your support as always. Mordred, thanks so much for being on. Sorry we ended up on like a super long tangent at the very end here.
I mean, it was for a good cause, but thank you very much for inviting me. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, you're always welcome back on. Sounds like a lot of us have Warhammer opinions that we should probably find a time to talk about.
We probably should, yes.
Yeah, and
we'll definitely have you back on at some point to talk about Total War, right? I mean, like,
or Bannerlord. Have you been playing much Bannerlord? Let's go on another tangent, shall we?
Yeah, let's just talk about Bannerlord for another 45 minutes.
Is Bannerlord actually out?
No, not
yet. It'll be out when Victoria 3's out.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So Bannerlord's actually the DLC for Victoria 3. Gotcha.
Yes. Victoria 3 Bannerlord is the full name of the game. Yes. Yeah.
Well, now you know how Paradox does projects. Project Tetrarch, for example, was Imperator. Well, the project for Victoria is Project Bannerlord. Just so you're aware.
Rose is just face palming in chat. Oh man. She's just like, I'm so glad this is not my responsibility right now.
Look, you left us. You left your babies to go and have a baby. You don't get to complain about this. This was your choice.
The one adult in the group. Yeah, no.
I just love the idea of people like listening to this podcast, like audio, and they hear like, you know, this we're wrapping up now, and then there's half an hour left of the audio.
Yeah, they're just like looking at the bar on their phone. Yeah. Follow us on Twitch, Twitter. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts: SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes. We're on all of them. NoCB Cast. We did talk about Humankind briefly. True Master. Nothing new for Old World this week, I don't think. But yeah. Until next week, we'll see you guys around.
See you later.
Bye.